Let's welcome spring into our homes with some spring DIYs. In this video, we will be giving plain wood birdhouses an adorable woodland look, and making some sweet little DIY bird's nest and eggs. So first off, we're going to start by staining each of the little wooden birdhouses. I'm using a Minwax gel stain in Aged Oak. For our first makeover, we're going to be using a pine cone. And I'm just going to go ahead and start breaking off the pieces of the pine cone. I'm sure there's different ways that you can do this. I first started out by just kind of breaking them and pulling them out like this. Then I tried with scissors, and the scissors worked the best. However, the pieces were much smaller, so they were a little bit harder to hot glue onto the house. But either way works perfectly. Now I'm just going to glue them on row by row so that they look like little shingles on the roof of this house. Once I was done hot gluing, I just went back and cut off the pieces of pine cone that were sticking up at the top. For our second birdhouse, I'm just going to be adding some hot glue to the roof and then adding some Spanish moss. Onto our third birdhouse, I'm just going to be using some greenery that I've had for a while. I think I picked this up at Hobby Lobby, and I just cut little pieces off of it so it looks like little vines, and I'm just going to hot glue the little vines onto the roof of the house. Up next, since I just wanted to use what I already had here in my craft room, I decided to use some wheat that I had left over from the fall season. I just went ahead and cut the sticks off of the actual wheat pieces and glued it onto the roof. And I didn't show this part on camera, but I did end up cutting the longer pieces of the wheat off so that the house looked a little bit more polished. Now for this house, I wanted to use some twigs. These are just from a grapevine, not really a wreath, but I bought some pieces of grapevine off of Amazon a while ago. So I just had them laying around and decided to use them because this is the perfect place to use them for some woodland looking little birdhouses. And sticking to using what I already have, once again, I'm using the wheat, but this time I'm using the sticks instead of the actual wheat pieces. So I just cut them down to fit onto the roof, and I just kept cutting to make sure that they fit the roof perfectly. For the nests, I'm just going to be using some moss and some school glue. I'm going to be pulling out pieces of the moss that are going to be about the size that I want each nest to be. I gave it a rough nest shape, and then these are the little birds I'm going to be using. So I want to make sure the nests kind of match the bird's size. Now here, I'm just going to be mixing some glue with some water until I get a nice thin consistency. Now I can go ahead and stick my moss into the glue mixture and make sure it gets nice and covered. Then I can start forming it into a nest shape. Then you can go ahead and set them aside. And here I'm just showing you all that I ended up using these jello molds that I just had laying around to form my nests, because I noticed as they started to dry that they were just kind of drying flat. So I stuck them into the jello mold and then on the back of the jello mold to give them a nice rounded shape. And to finish off the nests, we're going to be using some more of the grapevine twigs and some more moss. I'm just sticking the twigs in really wild-like. You can be as precise or as wild as you want to be with this part. It's up to you and how you want your nest to look. I want mine to look really wild and natural looking, so I just kind of went crazy with where I placed the twigs. And then I went ahead and added some moss in just to make them look a little bit more natural and rustic. Moving on to our DIY eggs. So I know that you can buy eggs pretty much all over the place, but I didn't find any that were small enough for the little birds that I'm wanting to use. So I decided to make some out of air dry clay. And as you can see here, I'm just rolling them in my hands and I'm placing them next to my little bird just to see the size and to make sure that they're a realistic size to the little bird that I'm going to be using in the nests. I placed toothpicks into each egg. That way I could put the eggs into some foam so they could dry, and then we're going to get to painting them in a little bit, and it makes it way easier to paint them if they're on some toothpicks on some foam. So I'm going to be using this color Burnt Umber, which is a brown color for the eggs, and I want them to look just speckly, so I am just going to leave them the air dry clay color, and I'm just going to speckle on some of this brown paint onto each of the eggs. And there you have it, some adorable spring DIYs and a little birdhouse makeover. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you want to see how I am going to decorate with all of this, I'm going to be using it in my entryway on my entryway tree, which is a Christmas tree that I'm leaving up. I'm going to be decorating it in a very woodland theme with a lot of spring florals, our cute birdhouses, and our birds' nests. So if you'd like to see that, stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next video.